Here's a real-life horror story nobody seems to be talking about. It's regarding Adam and Michaela, this beautiful young couple traveling through Talladega National Forest in Alabama. So they're driving out in the sticks near Cheaha Mountain when they come across a woman who's broken down. So the two lovebirds stop to help, and soon enough that woman pulls out a gun and starts walking them into the woods. Well, Adam here has his concealed carry permit. He pulls it out, shoots the woman, and she shoots him too. He dies, and Michaela takes off running for her cell phone and calls police. Now things start getting really weird. Deputies show up and start poking around, and locals, they talk about a group of people living in the woods off the grid, known to be armed and potentially violent. Deputies get out the canines, and soon enough, they find a large group of tents. It looks like a base camp. They also spot a woman, Michaela says, was at the scene of the robbery, watching from the woods. As deputies try to arrest this woman, a 5-year-old runs out of the woods carrying a loaded shotgun. Now, eventually, deputies are able to de-escalate the situation. But now a family is left mourning the loss of a young UCF student, and police are left trying to figure out who in the hell are these people in the woods?
The real story of the Conjuring House. The house was built in 1736. This house was seemingly normal until Roger and Carolyn Perrin and their 5 daughters claimed they saw ghostly happenings. In the 9 years they lived there, they said they smelled things like rotten flesh and sometimes saw things levitating in their own beds. One of the girls was suspected to be possessed by a demon. So, because of this, they got help from a well-known demonologist named Ed and Lorraine Warren. They said this house was haunted by the spirit of Bathsheba Sherman, a woman buried in a nearby cemetery, who according to local folktale was a witch that lived in that same house. And while the movie has a happy ending, it's slightly unknown how the real one ended.
This syringe was used in the season 10 filming of American Horror Story. If handled the wrong way, this syringe can be very dangerous, so it's really only used to decorate scenes. Now this leads me to talk about stunt kits. You have your prop syringe on the left and your real syringe on the right. They look almost identical, but the difference is the prop syringe is a dull tip, whereas the real one is a pointy needle. The real syringe doesn't move, but the stunt syringe can be used in an action scene to restrain someone or used to take blood. All fun stuff.
Oh no, ain't nowhere in hell this shit real. This son bitch was born with 2 heads. He was born with a head on the back of his fucking head. He claimed that the small face could talk, but it wouldn't talk around other people. It would only talk when he trying to go to sleep. It'll fuck with him all the time and tell him all type of evil shit, yo. The man's name was Edward Mordrake. He stated that the head was very evil and told him to do evil things. The thing is, he was a very attractive dude, so therefore he had an ass of women. But he kept his extra head a secret. Edward tried to get many doctors to remove his fucking head, but they weren't going for that shit. They weren't touching it. And it's a theory that women never return to his house after being intimate because that little motherfucker on the back of his head will bite their fucking hand.
Okay, here's another paranormal story time. So my friends and I went to Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights recently, and we kind of experienced something rather paranormal. And this was more situated in the scare zones rather than the haunted house themselves. Specifically the one at the Jurassic Park, which is the Pontianak scare zone or something. So I went there with my friend Tini, who can see ghosts, and with 2 other friends who are also pretty sensitive to spirits as well. So our main intention was to actually see the real thing, so that's why we had Tini along. Now, as usual, there's a lot of people in HHN, but as we entered the scare zone, the energy just dropped by a lot. And we really didn't have to communicate that because we just looked at each other and we already knew something was not right. Now, a rule of thumb here is you cannot point out that you saw the thing, right? So what Tini did was to just throw hints at where they are. Now at the start, it wasn't really that intense. It only got worse when we got closer to the kampong house. Now at the end of the kampong house, there is this window where the scare actor will come out and scare you, and it's a Pontianak obviously. Now here's the thing, her makeup was very real. Now when she came out to scare us, I wasn't really fazed, but I felt something else with her in that small room that she was in. So I was like, Tini, that room got one, right? And then she was like, yeah, there's one standing behind her. And I was just there like, I was right. Okay, and in front of the kampong house, there's this bridge that you have to cross. And this bridge has 2 Pontianak props each attached to the sides. Now mind you, there are actually people in front of us and behind us, so we were definitely not alone. But yet I started to have massive goosebumps from the back of my neck all the way down to the bottom of my spine. It was so intense that it was all over my arms as well. At that point, I knew that there was really something very close to us, and I just had to ask Tini, where are they? As we were walking, she was just casually going 1, 2, 3, 4 while not looking at them. And then towards the end, there were also Pontianak's characters, and she also mentioned that the real ones were actually right there behind them. Fast forward into the night, we decided to go again to find out more about that place. So I want to make special mention about that kampong house again. So I mentioned that there was something in there with this character in the kampong house, right? So this time around, when she came out to scare us and I looked her dead in the eye, I wasn't looking at her. This time it felt like I wasn't looking at her, but I was looking at this, because the energy was completely off. Like, it just felt like I wasn't looking at a person. And yes, Tini confirmed it. That thing was trying to possess her.
Baby girl came into the world in the most horrific way. She was ripped out of her mother's womb. 22-year-old Savannah Greywind was 8 months pregnant and thrilled at becoming a mom for the first time. But the most joyous time of her life came to an end by a barbaric act committed by this woman, the neighbor who lived upstairs.
This is who she is as we sit here today, a cold-blooded killer.
Savannah lived here in Fargo, North Dakota, in a basement apartment she shared with her parents.
I was excited to be a grandma.
Brooke Cruz lived on the 3rd floor in the same building. She invited the pregnant mom to her apartment.
Savannah left her basement apartment here, made her way up to apartment number 5 on the 3rd floor. She clearly expected to be right back because she left her cell phone behind. In fact, she had just ordered a pizza. But she made her way up to apartment number 5, and that was the last time she was seen alive.
Immediately, my heart dropped. I knew instantly something happened to my daughter.
Savannah's disappearance touched off an all-out search. Then, 3 days later, cops raided Cruz's apartment and, to their shock, found Savannah's baby girl alive.
When you saw this beautiful baby and your daughter was still missing, what were your thoughts about what happened to Savannah?
To keep searching.
To keep searching, try to have hope, and we wanted her found. We wanted her home.
8 days later came the terrible discovery. Here on the Red River, kayakers stumbled upon a gruesome scene. They found Savannah's body in the water, lodged against a tree, wrapped in plastic, and bound with duct tape.
Very horrific. And I can't imagine how another human being can do that.
Brooke Cruz and her boyfriend William Hone were charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Cruz pled guilty, and at her sentencing last week, the DA revealed she performed a crude C-section on the pregnant victim.
Brooke Cruz's words. I grabbed her blade. She was not dead when I cut her and took her baby out of her.
The motive? Cruz apparently wanted to raise the baby as her own. In court, there was this heartbreaking moment when Savannah's baby was brought before the judge, living evidence of the unspeakable crime. The killer tearfully apologized.
The person I owe the biggest apology to is not old enough yet to know that any of this is going on. I'm just really, really, really sorry.
Brooke was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Do you think she's remorseful?
No. Not one bit.
Baby Hazley Joe is now being raised by her father, Ashton Matheny, Savannah's longtime boyfriend.
She actually looks like she's looking at the picture.
Inside Edition was given exclusive access to the infant, and we found a touching bond between the child, who is now 5 months old, and the mother she will never know.
Dude, mommy. I'm trying to make her first word, mama.
The convicted woman's boyfriend, who is also charged in the killing, has pled not guilty. He goes to trial next month.
This is why you should never play Ding Dong Ditch. It was Halloween night a few years back and a group of friends were staying around my house. We decided we wanted to go out and have some fun, maybe play some Knockdown Ginger for a bit of a laugh. There was an abandoned house down the road from where I lived which was pretty creepy to say the least. This place had been abandoned for around 50 years, and there were legends in the village that it was extremely haunted, so no one would even dare get close. However, me and my friends, well, we were different. We ran up to the house late at night, rang the doorbell, and knocked on the door. Of course, at first, nothing happened. But, well, it sure did. So we carried on knocking to see if anyone would come out. We were shouting, "Come on, ghosts, come on, out you come." That was when we heard footsteps from within the house. Quickly ran and hid next to the house when we saw the door open. A man walked out. He shouted, "My name is James Daniels. Get off of my property now." We were all terrified but stayed hidden for now, until we saw his door close. We thought, this house is abandoned. What the hell? Had to of course walk through the garden in order to get off the property, but well, that was a mistake. The man then came running out the house and chased us down the street. While running, one of my friends decided to dial the police, because this guy was still chasing us and had something sharp in his hand. Eventually, we got clear of the man and the police arrived. This is where the story gets pretty crazy. First of all, they checked in the local area and the house. The doors were locked, and there was no one there. There wasn't even a trace that anyone had been there. The police then asked for the man's name. We said, James Daniel or something. The police checked all their records and were extremely confused. They said, "James Daniels, you say?" They showed us a picture. It looked like a pretty old picture, and we said, yeah, that's him. It looked exactly like him. They said, "This guy's been dead for 50 odd years."